Good afternoon, everyone. It's a wonderful training session going on, and we had the last session. The three sessions have happened so far from the inaugural session, and we are really, I'm finding it very lovely and informative. So, proceeding on to that series, and this session is with Kabir Bedi. I'm as of now, I've introduced Mr. Arvind Kumar. He's uh, associated with us. Hello, am I audible? Yeah. So, Arvind Kumar, I'll just introduce a bit about him and then we can take up this session for the benefit of our participants. Mr. Arvind Kumar is graduated from St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and then he completed his management from IIM Ahmedabad in 1980. He has been associated at senior leadership position in the multinational corporation since then, and has worked with several uh, important companies, including Asian Paints, Marico, Dabur, Britannia, PepsiCo, Edelweiss across the world. His core belief has been power of the people is quintessential factor for success of any institution. He is highly passionate about achieving results with ethics. Arvind Kumarji is running an NGO in the Uttar Pradesh and has been uh, providing education to 12,000 children at the primary level. He has a very humble and pious background and focuses upon public affairs and policy. He thinks that bureaucracy is the key for development and inclusive growth and has been into public policy and public affairs, focusing mainly upon ethics and value creation. So, with these words, I'll request Arvind Kumarji to join me in this session, and then we go ahead and seek our doubts, our queries from Mr. Kabir Bedi in his life of wonderful life, having achievements all across, as Arvind Mishra ji has narrated. Mr. Arvind Kumar.
Can I be heard, please?
Yes.
Okay, so we thought in a different way to lend some color now, and therefore we got Mr. Kabir Bedi. There should be a dash of color seriousness, and I've also worn a little unconventional shirt in the bargain. And also from the dash of color, I told Mr. Nitin ki, would you participate in this exercise? And I was pleasantly surprised that Mr. Gupta said, yes, I will structurally participate in this session. So that is the thing, and we want to, as he said, post-lunch is very tough. But somebody told me pre-lunch is also very tough because people are looking out for lunch, and post-lunch people want to go to bed. So this is a new learning which somebody gave. Both pre-lunch and post-lunch are difficult times. So we have to push in that much dash of color. And besides that, Kabir will you will discover that behind the Dash actor and Amitabh Bachchan voice alike, what a person he is. And the takeaway from this is that how a person can create, recreate life, and that is a story which will be very inspiring for Kabir to tell us from his personal experience. I'll give a few things. Kabir is 10 years senior to me from St. Stephen's College. And when there is a landing between the staff section and open, what is it called, prayer room, assembly room, and I used to gaze around at all the photographs there when I was in 75 in St. Stephen's, and there was this photograph for Kabir acting. I think in the same photograph, Kapil Sibal was there. I think that's the Julius Caesar takeout Kabir at that time. and then I lost track, and I'm sure you'll have a view or two on that also, which you did. And then I got in touch with Kabir in Bombay when we set up a college get-togethers there. And I found him a very unique person, though Kabir doesn't know I found him so unique, but he was so affable, so next door. He would land up, and once he dragged Shekhar Kapoor also there, so it was just a boy next door. And I was very impressed with Kabir at that time and noted it. And also found that variously he's a great person with a great heart, because in the Uttarakhand tragedy which happened, a group had just sent a appeal for people to contribute, and very silently we discovered one check, anonymous check from a guy called Kabir Bedi for 1 lakh. So there is a lot about this guy beyond his great looks and handsomeness, which we would like to discover. In the session right now, what I'll do is I will give a glamour. Kabir has just written a book, and that book defines actually their thinking and his ups and downs and his life story like never before. And the voice which will start booming, I'll give an intro. Kabir, don't talk for some time, okay? I don't want to. And then I will take the whole thing through his background, history, etc., up to a point of Sandokan. And after that, I will hand over to Mr. Nitin, and then finally close with a few discussions in case something is left from my pre-read notes. So, Oscar, play the video first.
Yes, sir. I'll just start sharing. Can you see my screen, sir?
Yeah, share the video. Yes.
In my heartfelt autobiography, I bare my soul with emotional honesty, with stories about affairs and anxieties, milestones and mistakes, and successes that made India proud. Stories of heart-wrenching setbacks, and how I survived the roller coaster journey by making, breaking, and remaking as a man. Stories I must tell is an emotional experience. Be the first to read and talk about stories I must tell. If you pre-order, you will qualify to join me in a social media chat about my life.
Yeah, so I will, Oscar, next one after that. Not right now. So there is the best way to introduce Kabir with his booming voice, background, history. I'll give a minute on what I know of Kabir's background. So he passed out from DPS. Can people hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so Kabir studied in Delhi Public School in Sherwood. He was in St. Stephen's College from 63 to 66 doing history. He was secretary of what is called Shakespeare Society. His roles in Bold and Beautiful, James Bond, Octopussy, well known. The high point would be how he, Sandokan, Kunbari Mang, we know. There's a cheeky interview with the Beatles. He sits on the Oscar nominating committee, etc., etc. All this will come with the book. I will spend, since he's my senior, I can go on and on during our college days, but I've minuted that is only 2-3 minutes I'm going to spend, because we don't want to derail my personal bondage with Kabir and our alma mater. And therefore, here we go. Okay. Kabir, I wanted to, I think we have to get Kabir and me now, or Kabir has to come. Okay, Kabir, you've had a fabulous life, and you had a fabulous parentage. Can you trace your history up to college time? Starting from your, yeah.
Well, thank you, Arvind. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I firstly want to thank the DTRTI for inviting me to this webinar and for Arvind Mishraji's wonderful introduction of me as well. And I'd say a very warm good afternoon to all of you who are watching me and listening to this. I am most grateful to many of you for the fairness of your assessments over the years. And I must say that you did seem to give me more of your love and attention in years that I made more money and less in the years that I made less money. But all the same, I am most grateful to the courtesies that I've received. And I thank you for all you've done for me, and especially understanding the complexities of double taxation systems in multiple countries and allowing me the right deductions, etc. So thank you for that in advance. Let me say that I've had quite a adventurous life, because my whole life has been an adventure of sorts. And it's been a life full of great successes, great failures, great relationships, great losses, many different aspects of my life. But since Arvindji asked me about my early life, let me say that I am most blessed to be the son of two remarkable people who are my parents. My father and mother were both part of the freedom struggle, and virtually were graduates of Oxford and could have got the best jobs in the country, and yet chose to give it all up to fight for the freedom of the country. And this was something that inspired their lives. My mother was a handpicked satyagrahi of Mahatma Gandhi. My father was a hot-blooded communist. They spent some years in Kashmir, which is where my earliest schooling took place. I came to Delhi. I was in my earlier years, I started at a Montessori school called Mrs. Gauba's in Connaught Place. And that's where I first met Rajiv and Sanjay Gandhi, and we became friends for life. And we always stayed in touch, and I was called to the Prime Minister's house, and we played with their toy trains and learned to ride horses together and celebrated birthdays together. I've talked about it and chronicled all that in my book. And I was very sorry when they met such tragic ends to their lives. But more importantly, to stick to the main story, my parents moved from revolution, finders freedom, to being religious figures through extraordinary events and happenings in their lives and experiences that they personally went through, which I saw personally, that transformed their lives. And this transformation also I have talked about. Theirs is a story, one of the chapters in my book. My book is made up actually of many chapters, many stories. That's why I say Stories I Must Tell is the subtitle, because there are many stories within my book, because I believe people are above all interested in stories, and that's the best way of telling things, rather than making one long story with many detours along the way. Break it up into lots of small stories. Each has its own drama, each has its own focus, each has its own emotion, each have their own heartfelt scenes, etc. So their journey and their lives and their values, because my father is a descendant of Guru Nanak, my mother became a Buddhist nun, and both of them affected me greatly by their example, by what they lived for, by what they believed in. And this has certainly been part of my life. Now, they sacrificed a lot to make sure that children had good education. So I went to good schools. I went to Delhi Public School. From there, I went to Sherwood. And from Sherwood, I came to St. Stephen's. But they never had any money, so I had to work my way through college. And one of the ways I worked my way through college was working for All India Radio in Delhi. Apart from being a tourist guide, because I was a student of history, apart from writing articles in newspapers, etc., because I like writing. But bottom line is, I worked my way through college and made my way to Delhi. Made my way from Delhi to Bombay. I joined advertising. I was in advertising for 5 years. Film chief of Lintas and Ogilvy and Mather before I even became an actor. Now, and then things led me into Bollywood, and that led to Europe, etc. Now, what I want to say is that I can give you the broad parameters of my life. You probably know the broad parameters of my life. Indian actor, went to Europe, became a big star there, went on to Hollywood, did various things there. But that's not my story. My story is a story of what it means to lead a different life, what it means to deal with extreme success, what it means to deal with extraordinary failure, what it means to be in highly turbulent relationships that change lives, that are under the public glare. What are the inside secrets of those relationships? What actually happened there? What is the truth of the matter? That is the journey that I can only share with you if you read the book. I can tell you, everyone's autobiographies have these, tell you about what they did. Not many show you, not many tell it to you as an emotional experience. And that's what my book is. It's an emotional experience. And that's what I've tried to share beyond, because what I did is just a canvas on which I've written this and which I've explored this. So, in essence, my years of Delhi were spent in different rented homes. One started off with a grotty little flat in Karol Bagh. Then it moved on to a nicer home in Nizamuddin. At one stage, the family finance was so bad we lived in tents in a vihara beyond a Buddhist vihara beyond the Qutub Minar. But these weren't the tents of the poor. These were the tents borrowed from given or rather lent by the Maharani of Patiala, who was a friend of my mother's. So the house of Patiala, but still it was living in tents on the grounds of a Buddhist monastery. So I didn't come from a family of great wealth. I came from a family of great culture, great knowledge, great ideals. And that has remained with me and helped me through my worst time, because I've seen hard times and I've risen above them. So the Delhi days were days of when I grew up, I expanded my mind. At St. Stephen's, I was part of a remarkable generation. Apart from being on the Shakespeare Society and doing this wonderful play with Kapil Sibal playing Caesar, and I'm playing the lowly Casca. I wanted to be on the debating team, but there was no way to break into the main debate, the A team, because who was on that team? Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Prabhat Patnaik, Arun Maira, Ram Chopra. I mean, giants, intellectual giants. So we were on the B team, and we went to lesser colleges and we debated lesser colleges, some of the girls' colleges too, which had its compensations. But the fact of the matter is that debating was actually something that interested me more than acting at the time, although acting was always a hobby of mine. And that's what eventually got me into acting professionally. But my Delhi days were marked by coming of age, understanding what life was about, learning from my parents, dealing with hardship, making great friends, and forming myself. And the fire in the belly that I had that got me an interview with the Beatles, the only interview they ever gave in Delhi when I was there, and how I got to them and what the consequences of that interview, all in my book.
Yeah, I'll add on a bit, Kabir. The famous comment in our college magazine after Julius Caesar. Would you like to say that for the sake of happiness?
Since you've asked me, I will.
Yeah.
After we did this play called Julius Caesar, in which I helped cast Kapil Sibal, helped suggest Kapil Sibal as Caesar, and while I played the lowly Casca, the cynical, funny college magazine called Cooler Talk said, Julius Caesar had been murdered twice, once by Brutus and once by Kapil Sibal. And this is part of a kind of wonderful, jokey relationship that Kapil and I have had. And I was very proud that he achieved so much in life by becoming one of the senior ministers of the Congress government. We're not on the same page politically, but I have great respect for all that Kapil has achieved. And he was always a great debater, always a great fighter for the cause he believed in. and is a wonderful guy to know.
Okay, Kabir, just an intervention. I don't know whom you are saying Arvind G. If it is me, it is wrong. You have to call me Arvind. Arvind G is Mr. Arvind Misra. Okay,
Okay, all right. You're Arvind, he's Arvind Ji. Fair enough.
Okay, fair. Okay. So, Kabir, I don't think too many people know about Sandokan, and therefore people would like to know a bit about it. And there's a either before that or after Sandokan, there's a clip on Sandokan which we will show. And that also was an issue of struggles and movement and others before he just shot to fame. So can you give the Sandokan story?
Well, I won't narrate the whole story because it is, in fact, a 6-hour miniseries to start with, so it will take a long time to narrate the story. But in essence, Sandokan was an epic book that was written by one of Italy's greatest authors, Emilio Salgari. And it was a story about an Asian prince who became a pirate to fight against the British and fell in love with an English girl. And this created that wonderful aura of Romeo and Juliet kind of romance against the struggle, epic struggle for the freedom of his country. A pirate against the empire. The Italians were looking for the best actor in Asia to play this role. And they came to Bombay to look for the actor. And I had just done a terrific play called Tughlaq, directed by Alec Padamsee, which is Girish Karnad's first play in English. And he absolutely wrote a fantastic play. And it got me a lot of acclaim, which led to a lot of producers coming to me, and I did my first few Bollywood films. So when the Italians came into town, they asked around for actors. There I was. People knew my name. And I was called in, and they asked me to fly, asked me if I was willing to fly at my own expense to Rome for an audition. And to cut a long story short, I did. I nailed the role. I got it. And the series went on to become the biggest success in European television history. It broke all existing records, created absolute hysteria across Europe. Overnight, I became a megastar in Europe. And it led to my going on to Hollywood. And there were many, many wonderful people that I met during this time of success, and many, many extraordinarily funny events that happened while I was in Italy. Let me give you quickly one particular story, because it'll sum up one of the many, many stories that are in my book, but it'll give you a flavor and color. At the time of Sandokan, the two biggest international Italian actresses were Sofia Loren and Gina Lollobrigida. I received, through the manager of Air India in Rome, Cecil De Mello, I received an invitation for dinner with Gina Lollobrigida. Now, I'd gone to Italy with Parveen Babi, because we were together at the time, and we had a relationship that lasted over almost 3 years. And so she was part of we became sort of joint, the couple that was well known in Italy overnight because of the success of Sandokan. So Gina invited us. We were thrilled to go. We went to a home, beautiful home, and the plan was she'd introduce us to some friends and take us to a private dinner. At this reception, she greeted me warmly, greeted Parveen, and then started introducing me to everybody and talking to everybody. The only problem was she completely ignored Parveen. She just talked as though I was there. So I kept trying to include Parveen in the conversation. She didn't take any notice, and I could see Parveen's irritation rising. I thought, well, it's fine, we're going to dinner, we'll sort it out. When we went to dinner, things didn't get any better, they got worse. Because we arrived, we sat down at dinner, Gina said, let's dance. So this was a beautiful old-fashioned restaurant with band playing on the side, people doing ballroom dancing. Gina and I would dance on the floor, and I'm thinking, my God, I've made it in life, man. I'm dancing with Gina Lollobrigida, this Hollywood star, Italian star. Nevertheless, she said, when the number finished, I said, please, let's come back to the table. He came back to the table, and Parveen said, my dear, what are you doing? Following the star? This was an attack on the woman I loved by a star I admired, whose guest I was. What was I to say? Before I could think of anything, Parveen replied sharp as a rapier. She said, "No, my dear, I'm with my man, because I have a man." "Oh, she's very smart," said Gina. "It's very clever, this girl." And Parveen said to me, "Let's dance." I took her to the dance floor, started dancing with her. She said, "I'm leaving." "Are you leaving the dance floor?" She said, "No, I'm leaving the restaurant." I said, "You can't leave the restaurant to guests of Gina Laura Brigida." "I don't care. She may matter to your career. She doesn't mean anything to me." I said, "Look, you can't walk away from dinner with Gina Laura Brigida. It would be a scandal. It would be unthinkable. It's like she's the biggest star." I said, "Well, I'm leaving. Do what you like." And she walked back to the table and started picking up her bag. And I'm thinking, what do I do? Here I'm come to Italy. I'm suddenly a overnight star, but I don't know the industry. Gina could have told me a lot about the industry. She would have told me about Hollywood. She might have helped me in ways I don't know. But the fact was, she had been rude to the woman I loved, and that hurt me. And I had to stand by my woman. So I leant down to Gina and said, "Gina, I'm terribly sorry, but we have to leave." And she said, "No, dinner is coming. What is this?" I said, "Gina, I'm terribly sorry. I have to leave." And I walked out behind Parveen. And that is the end of my glorious dinner with the international diva, Gina Laura Brigida. That's just one of the stories in my book. I can't narrate them all. We just wouldn't have time. But it's important to know the kind of success that it had. There was a time when I went to a department store in Spain. I was on the 10th floor for a book signing. And then the manager comes to me and says, "You have to leave." I said, "Why?" He said, "This building is not designed to hold so many people. Fans have filled every single floor. The building will collapse. You will have to leave, otherwise people will die." And I had to leave because of that situation. So, and then how I finally got out of the building, I had to jump across the tops of cars to get away. All that's in my book. But just to say the degree of stardom was extraordinary. And yet even success had its problems, huge problems, which I've talked about in my book, and how things went on from there. But since, in a word, that's the story of the essence of Sandokan without giving away all the juiciest bits of that amazing adventure.
So,
For a Delhi boy getting to becoming a big star in Italy, it was on a hell of a jump.
So, Oscar, would you like to play the second clip? This will be a surprise to you also, perhaps.
I didn't know you had anything like that ready. Okay,
yeah, let's see. Let's see.
Interest.
Yeah.
You can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, here goes.
Yo tengo aquí un amigo que quiero presentarles y con el que vamos a conversar después. Ustedes lo conocen, no voy a decir su nombre. Tan solo voy a decir que acaba de llegar ahora mismo de Londres, que es éxito lo que él hace en casi todo el mundo y que para darle la bienvenida a España, donde va a estar durante 3 o 4 días, hemos preparado algo muy especial. Este, señores, es Sandokan.
The sound isn't very clear.
The recording sound is low.
Okay.
¿Le gustó? How did you like it?
What a celebration of Sandokan, what a celebration of Spain. I'm overwhelmed.
Dice que está terriblemente emocionado, sobrecogido por esta bienvenida a España y que homenaje a Sandokan y que homenaje a España.
Gustó mucho.
Gustó mucho. Bueno, ya es algo lo que aprendió.
Hablo muy mal.
Pero habla. Entonces vamos a ir por ese camino entonces. ¿De dónde es Kabir Bedi? Where do you come from?
I come from, I belong to the world.
Dice que pertenece al mundo.
But I was born in Lahore. I live in Bombay.
Dice que nació en Lahore, ha vivido en Bombay.
I studied in the Himalayas. I work
Where you got this clip from? But his show reminds me of old times and that visit to Spain. This happened actually in Spain. Sandokan was a success all across Europe.
Let's see
sit, I can feel
You'll
it.
see the woman, important woman in your life in this clip.
Really something. that
Right.
Something.
Well, there were, quite amazing scenes. I mean, I remember going to Yugoslavia and being featured in the biggest dining rooms they had. Because the communists saw Sandokan as an anti-communist crusade. So they welcomed it. All those states were communist in those days. Here's Parveen Babi, who was with me at the time.
Parveen Babi.
Se llama Parveen Babi.
We've been together for about 2 years.
Que hace 2 años que
She's one of the best known stars in India.
es una de las más
I'm telling you what a big star she is in India.
And I
Because
recognize her because recently she was on the
I
cover.
didn't want people to think that she was just some pretty doll on my arm. She had her own place, her own life, her own fame.
revista Time.
But above all, she's a magnificent woman and I love her.
Pero sobre todo es una mujer magnífica y la quiere, Kabir Bedi. Hoy es uno de estos.
Wow.
Hablo de mí.
Don't know which archive you dug that out of, but thank you for doing that. Brings back a lot of memories.
Porque mis dos hijos, que hoy se han quedado hasta esta hora para ver a Sandokan, van a ir mañana, como me han dicho, al colegio diciendo que su papá conocía a Sandokan. Y eso sí que es importante, por lo menos para mí.
¿Qué dice?
No lo sabe usted, pero yo se lo contaré después. Y le voy a pedir... Kabir Bedi. Le voy a pedir que me dedique este libro con las aventuras de Sandokan. Y cuando aprendan a leer, pues... Will you sign this for me? Y que vaya en este saludo, el saludo para todos los niños de España.
Since the sound can't be heard, it might be better to just, I think people have seen enough of this wonderful video, because it does represent the time and the period and what I looked like at the time and the events that surrounded the success of Sandokan, which was extraordinary. So it was something that no Indian actor had done, achieved that level of stardom in Europe, and it led to me being the first Indian actor that actually went from Bollywood and made a career and lived in Hollywood. So this series was the beginning of many, many different events in my life, which I've chronicled in my book, and I hope you share that.
So before I give the stage to Mr. Gupta, people must be wondering that what is it to do with this seminar? The point which I wanted to ask you, Kabir, is two. One can be later. What are you seeking through all of this? Maybe I can settle later. But can you give a rundown on the ups and downs, adversity, the movement, and how you manage to keep your level emotionally? You are a guy next door when you are so rich and famous right now. Wikipedia even gives your wealth amount, which is staggering. And you,
I wish they were right. I gladly want that piece of Wikipedia to be right.
But even just to complete, but even after that, your response to this session, your administrative tightness, your humility, your level-headedness, the way you reacted to pick up an unlisted phone from Oscar, and I told him 9 o'clock and not 9:01 or 8:05. How have you managed your dignity, movement? Maybe you can just white talk on this, because I personally find you a very fascinating person.
Thank you, Arvind. My being here has a few reasons. One is that whether you are in the government and serving the country as in the revenue service or not, there is a part of each one of you which is a creative part. I know this from my different college groups, because we all come from the same kind of colleges. And the fact of the matter is that there is a part of you that is creative. In these groups, people who are ambassadors, people who are top secretaries in the government, people in the IRS, people in the police service, administrative service, somebody said,
No voice. Kabir, no voice.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, now it's okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Let me just recap that quickly. I said, one of the reasons for my being here is that I am your creative self, in the sense that whether you're working with the IRS, whether you're a top bureaucrat, whether you're an ambassador, I see this in my college groups. We all come from the same kind of colleges. And within these groups, I see so many creative people, people who are singers, people who patronize the arts, somebody finds joy in other cultural activities, somebody writes, and so many brilliant writers have come out of the services. So there's always a creative part of you, which is either expressed or unexpressed. And I'm that part of you that actually expressed my creativity and went into the performing arts. And perhaps it would be interesting for you to see what that life might have been like. That's one. Secondly, I have had some very intense relationships and various forms of relationships. Some, in some ways, sometimes quite shocking. And maybe it would be of interest for you to see the inside of what it is like to be in such relationships and what happen, and the dramas that happen within it when you share your life with people who are stars in their own right and have their own needs and compulsions, and how you deal with the conflicts that arise in such situations. Thirdly, success and failure is part of all our lives. We've all seen successes, we've all seen failures. I have seen extreme successes and I have seen extreme failures. Success has its own challenges. There are dilemmas that you have to answer within that, choices you have to make in that, because the more successful you are, the higher your position, say, the bureaucracy or the hierarchy of a company, every single thing you do has much greater consequences than people realize. And so every decision you take has to be taken with care but with boldness, because there's no such thing as a safe decision. It wouldn't be a decision otherwise. Decision involves hard choices, and those hard choices involve sometimes putting your future at risk, but it shouldn't ever put your values at risk. It should entail coming back to the strengths that you have to find the right decisions in times of success, and in times of failure, you are tested even more. What is it that it takes to rise from the depths? I mean, after seeing extraordinary success in Europe, I did some things in America. I was in the Bold and Beautiful, I was in the Bond film, I did a dozen television series, etc. But then I made some spectacularly bad investments. And I really almost hit the bottom line, not because of alimonies or because I had to make sons schools, etc. It was just bad judgment. When you come from a family where you don't have money, suddenly you get a lot of money. You think it's there forever. You think you can do what you want. You get greedy. You want to multiply it. You want to, if you become a millionaire, you want to become multimillionaire. You take risks that you shouldn't. So all that is essentially in my book. And that's my point here is to say, I have a life that has many lessons within it. It's not written as lessons, do not do this. It's all there in the book. You'll see and understand the mistakes that I made in relationships, in finances, even in moments of success, and yet how I rose from the ruins of that and resurrected my life, and what it takes to do that. So that is the summation of why it's important for me to share my life, because there are many commonalities between us in the basics. The form might change, the countries might change, the names might change, but we all go through this. My book is an emotional experience. It's a journey about the wondrous, joyous, and yet heartbreaking essence of being human and going through life facing all that.
Over to you, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you. Dear participants, I'll be raising few questions on behalf of you. to make the session interactive, and questions would be more on applied side, analytical side. And we would like to hear from Mr. Bedi what can be. He has narrated something which is commonality between us and any other common person, but still I'll be raising some questions which are on analytical side and applied side, and I'll request Mr. Bedi to answer for the benefit of all of us.
Gladly, I'll do my best.
We can learn on leadership side, on transformational side, which is the theme of the 2-day webinar which we are undertaking. You have said that you have a very adventurous life full of successes and failures, extraordinary successes and failures. So like for a person, how do you maintain when there is a success, such an extraordinary success, where you get name and fame across the world? How do you maintain poise? How do you maintain that sort of humbleness, and what way one can progress the situation? What should be the way, the manner one can move ahead in these times when we have experienced both sides of the thing? What is your thought, and how do, as a leader, one can, means it is a personal life or private life, or government life, public life, what way you think should be the...
Abraham Lincoln said something very profound. He says, most men can bear adversity, but if you want to know man's character, give him power. When people have power, their character comes out. So if they're mean, nasty people, they will be mean and nasty to the max. If they're warm, giving, generous, creative people, they will be that to the max. So remember, your character is revealed in success when you have that power. You're a star, everyone admires you, whatever you say is broadcast. You can use it to be the most vindictive you can about people that stopped you or opposed you, or you can forget about them and celebrate the moment. You can see how to build on it. It's a matter of, you have choices at that point. So the choices you make define who you are and what you are. And define your future too, because everything eventually has a cause and effect and comes back to you. So dealing with success has its own dilemmas. For instance, at the height of my Sandokan success, I went to a very well-known Italian director and I said, in spite of all the success that I've had, and people are saying I brought back the star system to Italy, Fellini is praising me, Bertolucci is praising me, Audrey Hepburn is coming up to me, Gina Lollobrigida is inviting me to dinner. Why have I not been inundated with offers by the Italian film industry? I said, Kabir, you are Sandokan. You are iconic as Sandokan. We make social and political films, comedies. We can't have Sandokan walk into our film. It would ruin our film. And I thought to myself, my God, am I going to be a one-hit wonder in the country of my greatest success? That success could become a prison by itself. I realized that I had to somehow reinvent myself. And that's a key lesson for all people, not just for me. The ability to reinvent yourself. So I said, okay, I'll push the envelope and I'll go to Hollywood. Fortunately for me, before I went to Hollywood, I got another role of another pirate, a Western pirate, this time a Western pirate, called The Black Pirate, which I shot with Mel Ferrer in Colombia, and that helped change my image. But it was moving to America that did the trick. Because even though I never became a major star in America, I got important films. They knew me as a working actor. I was living there. And Italy started perceiving me not just as Sandokan, but as an actor, because they saw me in many other American series. They saw me in the Bond film. They saw me in other things. They suddenly said, he's not just Sandokan. He's an actor who can do many roles. And then I got many, many series with Italy. In fact, the quantum of my roles with Italy and the quality has been such that I got knighted by the Italian Republic, which is the highest civilian honor. So it was overcoming the problem of success that by reinventing myself that led me to my to greater success. indirectly through America, in Italy. Failure, too, has enormous lessons. I mean, I was hit by financial tragedy in the middle of my son's suicide and other tragedies that happened in my life, which are also chronicled very, in great emotional depth in my book. And I had to rebuild my life brick by brick, cinema, film by film, taking whatever came in my way, whatever it took, going back, remembering the strengths that I had within me, and believing that I would overcome this. That's important because, when a crisis hits, when something, say somebody loses a job or something goes wrong in life, a person gets depressed. It's all very well saying be positive. How can you be positive? It takes enormous mental energy to pull yourself out of a dark place. It takes almost superhuman energy to say, no, I will not, worrying will not solve this problem. I have to find solutions, I have to find ways, I have to do something that will change my reality first, and it has to begin by me changing my thinking, because unless I think it right, it will not happen. At the level of our existence that we live in, things don't happen instantaneously. In dream states, they do. In dream states, you imagine you want to be in a palace, bang, you're there. You want to be at a great banquet, bang, you're there. In our lives, if you want to be at that banquet, you have to work bloody hard to make sure the banquet happens. And that is the steps. So, firstly, the decision to lift yourself out, then the energy to lift yourself out. And it has to it can only come from the well springs of your own inner strength. I got my inner strength firstly because I saw my parents go through immense financial crises and yet weather them calmly, without screaming, without bringing the house down, without telling the world how badly off they were, without, reaching out for favors that they could have asked a lot of people, but just believing in the dignity of their lives and living it. So that gave me a lot of strength. My becoming a Buddhist monk in Burma at a very young age and being ordained with Buddhist robes and shaven head and learning meditation from the great Mahasi Sayadaw, who taught the great Goenkaji's meditation, who then brought it to India. All that gave me a lot of inner strength, the ability to go back into myself and rethink it all, reinforce that belief in myself, and think and find ways of changing my reality. And that's what I did. So as I said, both success and failure have their problems. These are things all of us face in our lives. And there have to be techniques that make that happen. It's not just phrases. It's decision, grit, perseverance, and the willingness to do everything it takes to change your situation. That's what I've learned in life, and I hope knowing that and sharing that experience and those conflicting emotions that swamp you, as I did in my book, will bring some value to the lives of those who also read my book.
Wonderful, wonderful. We
can I chip in with a question? Because
Sure.
if you could allow me.
Yeah.
Madam Suchimita Palai, she is the principal commissioner in Mumbai. She is interested in asking a question. So we can have a question from the listeners also.
Of course, Mr. Ji. Will you read the question or will she speak it, or how will this happen?
Okay, I can read that question. She's asking, please tell us something about your father, because she's already read your book and you haven't said enough about him. So can we hear something about your father, who was a spiritual guru? Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes,
Arvind, actually, I had read that book because Sabir got the personalized copy from Mr. Bedi. He belongs to the same college. So in Bombay, he signed his copy. So I was the first one to read it before Sabir did. So,
Thank you.
So
Thank
I
you,
just want
Sushmita.
to know about your dad, who was a spiritual guru, and how much were you influenced by his... I know about your mom and you became a monk and all that,
Yes.
But about your father, you haven't really written much. So I would like to know.
Well, thank you for that, Sushmita. My parents would be regarded as remarkable people, even if they were not my parents. They had such an unusual attitude to life and lived such amazingly different lives and had the courage to live it differently. 3 books have been written on my mother already. One by BBC journalist Andrew Whitehead, one by Naomi Levine, one by Vicky McKenzie. But no books have been written on my father. So it's interesting that you ask a question on my father. My father was this young man who went to Oxford on scholarship, brought back a bride to India, fought for India's independence. He, in Lahore, our family lived in these things called the huts, and they were literally huts. 3 huts with the buffalo tethered nearby for milk, and they were known as the huts, and it was a landmark because this is where all the leftists and all the revolutionaries would gather. The police would watch them, harass them, sometimes beat them, and many great, well-known people were part of this adda. There was Gyani Zail Singh, who became Prime Minister. There was Inder Gujral, who became Prime Minister. There was Sheikh Abdullah, who became the ruler of Kashmir. There was Hafiz Jalandhari, who became the Poet Laureate of Pakistan. There was Pran Mehra, who became the first editor of the Statesman. Khushwant Singh was a sympathizer. He'd come. The artist Saniyas would come. Various people would gather at this place. And my father, Baba Bedi, was like this symbol of leftist revolution against the British colonial Raj. Then he, after independence, went to Kashmir to help his friend Sheikh Abdullah at his invitation. He actually wrote the Constitution of Kashmir, and which Sheikh Abdullah called revolutionary because it actually gave land to the landless. There's a whole beautiful chapter there's a whole section on Kashmir that I've written about as part of their story. So I'll leave you to look at the details there. But then he came down to Delhi because he had a disagreement with Sheikh Saab because Sheikh Saab was thinking of toying with the idea of an independent Kashmir, and my father couldn't be part of that. So then in Delhi, he had this incredible spiritual experience that went on for 3 days, and we saw it. And doctors came and went, and they didn't know what was happening, which I all have described again. But at the end of it, he started manifesting all kinds of spiritual gifts, the gift of healing, the gift of helping people. And he developed, apart from that, a philosophy of life that it's hard to summarize, but it was a vision of life that said, everything around us is conscious, down to every speck of dust. Everything around us, every color, every sound, every object, every human, all affect us in certain ways. And we have to be sensitive to it. And above all, we have to become the best we can be by tapping into the best of us and the most creative parts of us. He believed that disease came from a lot of disease, not things based by chemicals, but a lot of disease came from blocked creativity, creating, problems for the body. He believed that consciousness and conscience were the most powerful force. He called conscience the eye of the soul. And I've seen him transform the lives of countless people in Italy with the work that he did. Because he also had this vibrational therapy that he used to use to help people, which is not just a gift he had. And I used to say to him, how do you heal people? And he said to me, I don't heal them. I merely put them in touch with the cause of their problem. So how do you know what the cause of their problem is? He said, that's the gift I have. I talk to them, and in talking to them, it comes to me. I understand where the root of that problem began. And what normally takes a year of psychotherapy, he seemed to divine in the course of a single conversation. And he says, by putting people in touch with the root of their problem, their own consciousness heals them. And there are cases in medical journals in Italy testifying to this. A woman was diagnosed with terminal cancer by the foremost expert in San Francisco, came back to Italy to die. She was weighing 31 kilos when he started treatment of her. She was given 5 months to live, even with chemotherapy. She lived for another 40 years after my father treated her. These are documented cases. So he built a huge following before he passed away. A center near Venice still continues his life and work and uses his techniques. And he was a remarkable human being. He just did his own thing. He never held a regular job in his life. And at times, he would write books on Guru Nanak and translate the Zafarnama of Guru Gobind Singh and write about Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya, but none of them made money. People would come to him for all these blessings. He wouldn't take money. He just wouldn't take money for the things he believed in. Once he went to Italy and had to live. He then his new wife then started taking money, and he lived for many years in Italy. So a remarkable story, to answer your question. And I'm blessed and privileged to be his son. And the longer story, I guess, it will be always philosophy is in an Italian book called L'Uomo Totale. But the basic story of my parents is the chapter in my book, which I'm sure you'll enjoy reading.
Mr. Mishra, in the interest of time, I would request Mr. Gupta to ask the remaining questions he has. And the audience can see Kabir again, because from 5 to 6, he's in a question-answer session with Kamlesh Daji, who is so we can have as much of Kabir at that time.
That's Daji's session.
Yeah. So Mr. Where he'd be asking questions and Daji would be answering. But Mr. Gupta, you had some more.
Yeah, one or two questions, because we are short of time already. We have exceeded time. But one thing which comes to my mind is that as a bureaucrat, we are through a lot of stress and strains and work pressure, and you also feel similar sort of things, particularly when working in public life. And so how do you maintain your health? What is the secret success of maintaining health, which is the primary thing for anyone in our Hindu scriptures or Hindu saying, "Pehla sukh nirogi kaya." So how do you maintain? That's the thing which is coming to my mind.
Well, I know we've reached the end of the session. I think the questions you're asking is actually more relevant to Daji's session, where we will explore these things at greater length. I'll say is that I'm a wonderful body, thank you, parents. I can't the fact that I work out and made my body. But all I'll say is I have a little nuskha, because I have great faith in the healing power of turmeric, haldi. And I take a lot of haldi, and I take dalchini with it for taste, a little honey, a little black pepper, a little oil for absorption. And I've taken that for the last 5 years, and I've not had a cold. But really, as an actor, it's my job to maintain my physical body as best as possible, because that's my instrument. And I do my best, even though I don't exercise as much as I used to. But I do what's necessary. At this age, you have to. But all I'll say is thank you for inviting me, and please take the trouble to read my book, because it comes from my heart. It shares my life, and I'm sure it'll add to yours in some ways, in many ways that you don't expect. And I promise you one thing, you will learn many things about me that will surprise you, because so many people talk about my writing with great honesty and candor. It's because I've shared things that most people don't.
So Kabir, to close, the theme of Mr. Rashesh Shah, yours, Daji, and the next one, we had decided it's a beautiful world. That's how we said. It's a beautiful world, and we should look to the beautiful world all the time. The second is a surprise that tomorrow we have a session with Devdutt Patnaik, and Devdutt Patnaik's books and Kabir's books through various sources will reach the participants. Your publisher is giving a fabulous discount. There'll be some money for which will between VC, NLET, Edelweiss, various what do we do. But people have to exercise choice which book they want, and we'll have a lottery for that, our opinion, who wants what, and let's see your how it goes, Kabir. But thank you very much.
And Devdutt Patnaik also writes brilliant books, so it's a hard choice for them, I must admit. and I will respect their choice, whatever it is, but naturally I would have my favorite.
And of course, and thank you very much, Kabir, for your precision, professionalism, even in this session. You are the most very professional in this whole session. You talk on to time 5 minutes before.
I always do that.
Your WhatsApp answers were prompt, immediate. Your email responses are prompt and immediate. I personally also learned from this session.
Thank you, Arvind.
Thank you very much, Kabir.
Well, Arvind, I'd just like to intervene a little bit. My boss, Mr. Suren Mohan, he wants to ask a question because he's fascinated by Mr. Kabir Bedi. So please give him a chance. Please ask a question, sir.
Yes, Mr. Suren Mohan.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope you are running out of time. Sorry for disturbing you in the last minute. Sir, my question is that you have undergone, like any other human being, you have undergone a lot of ups and downs in life. And you also undergone Buddhist training. And Buddha says that happiness and sorrow are like the waves in the ocean, which comes in our mind. And to get relief of both, we need to get isolated from these waves. So in the light of this, I want to know from you, sir, as per you, what is the meaning of life? How to search meaning in life? That's my question.
No pressure there, right? That's an easy one. That's something that a lot of people have asked, explored, and I'm sure with Daji you can explore that question too. For me, fundamentally, the meaning of life is evolution. Life is meant to evolve itself and to evolve us and to express itself and us and our uniqueness in its own way. We are here to express our uniqueness to contribute to the universe. That, for me, is the purpose of life, and finding that purpose within us gives meaning to our life. We give meaning to our own lives by finding our purpose and what we can give our best of ourselves to the universe for our prosperity, but also for the evolution of the human race. That, to me, is the meaning of life. But above all, along the way, let us never forget to be kind and compassionate, because we are all in the same boat together.
So well said. Kabir, to close,
Thank you, sir.
To close, if you have the time, you could log into the next session. It's also one of a beautiful life, absolutely mind-blowing what we're going to say. So if you have 5-10 minutes or half an hour after this, just keep on. You will enjoy the next session. And Misra Saab, you could close this session maybe and get the other next one.